Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Chad Jenkins. Now, Chad is a prominent business person. He is, what does it say? He has bought and acquired and sold over 50 businesses. The reason why I wanted to bring him on the podcast is this guy thinks beyond thinking. If you want to talk about exploring your mind and really seeing the way it works, not only that, but seeing how it connects to the world, he's the guy to listen to. We also get deep into his daily routine, what he calls his daily grace, and we dive into the mind, the body, and spirit. But most importantly, he talks about the way to unlocking the key or getting the key to unlock your purpose in life. And he's found that for himself. And he's found that that's happened in a certain age bracket in your life. It's somewhere between 8 and 11. But I don't want to share too much more about this podcast, but I walked away from it completely energized and fired up about the possibilities after listening to the thinking tools that he has and his approach to life. He's a fantastic entrepreneur, a deep thinker, and an incredibly passionate giver of value to the world. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. Let's go explore. Chad, welcome to the Viking Academy podcast.
Eric, very excited to be here, ready to get into it.
I was saying just before we started recording that this isn't going to be your typical business podcast. This is what you and we've met through Strategic Coach, and we've talked a lot about collaborations. And but one of the things that I found incredible when I was talking to you was the amount of thinking you do. You're a very deep thinker, and you're processing the room. And, I did a little bit of homework on you, and you've always been someone to look for value in the world. So you're always looking, seeing value in the world. So I want to dive into a little bit of that. And I want to dive into a little bit of how you approach your day, because that's the other thing we talked about too. But just for the listener here, could you just give me a little quick synopsis of who you are and your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, and just who you are as a person, so we kind of get a framework, and then we'll dive into some of the fun stuff.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So looking backwards, and this is consistent with all the entrepreneurs that I engage with today. It's also kind of a deep study thing I'm on. I learned how to create value at the age of 8, and the way I was uniquely designed to do so. I didn't know it that deeply, but you talked about looking for value. I'm innately wired to see what I call the emergent out of the combination of two or more people, places, and things. So I started doing that, and it was from a standpoint of being able to create value. At 8, I'd grown up riding horses before I could walk, and I would go to horse sales with my dad a few times a week. I wanted to make money, and it was pretty obvious that if a small peanut-sized kid was riding a horse, most of the people that were wanting to buy a horse thought that they could ride it too. Not 100% true all the time, but I could convert that value creation perception from the people in the stands to me being on someone else's horse into $10 or $20 to ride people's horse through the sale barn. So at that age, I was making $200 to $300 a week, and I thought that was okay, which led me to my first real estate transaction at 11 years old.
Okay, I read that. Of course, I did a little bit of sleuthing. Perplexity is a lovely machine, because I just in there, and it told me that you bought your first piece of real estate at 11. What the?
Yeah. Well, thank you to my dad, obviously, right? You've got to have some point in direction. So yeah, I was way out in South Carolina, and looking back, I was like, wow, it's really surprising to me that anyone else would want it. But luckily, about a year and a half in, somebody did. They had purchased a lot beside me and wanted to expand their holdings, and I made some pretty good money. And that just kind of set me on a rhythm of looking at the world differently than what I perceive most people look at it now. And I'm always attracted to the emergent, which is after you combine two or more things together, what can it create? So it's a lot of what ifs.
And this is why the way you look at the world is so in alignment with the Viking Academy ethos. And what I've as this Viking Academy is bubbling up and it's presenting itself to me in terms of what it wants it to be, I always believe that there's a reason for everything in the universe. The universe is intelligent. There's an intelligence that's combining and connecting everything, but you see that, you're looking at that connectivity and going, oh, wow, I take this and this and put it together with that and that, and look at, there's the puzzle piece. And it's like seeing the hand of the creators, but you're seeing kind of the back scenes, and you can see things that people can't, or that most of us don't see, or you see the interconnectivity, and that's completely in alignment with the Viking Academy. And so
that's awesome.
As you were, see, but you have to have curiosity too. And this is the other thing, is
Absolutely.
like being an explorer. That's for the Viking Academy members and those listening to the podcast. I keep saying, grab your sword and go explore. Go explore the mind, the body, and spirit. Just explore, be curious. But you picked up on this curiosity and your unique ability at a very young age. Like, how long did it take? How long did you really take for you to realize this was my unique ability? Like you just said earlier, you look back on it and said, "Oh,
yeah, I look back on it now. Yeah. It was my wiring, but I didn't know it. So even through many different examples and all the organizations that I started before and right after high school, is the same common thread, and it's continued afterwards, even to the last few years when I became like really intentional about. I wanted to see. I'll tell you, it was driven because I was getting chastised. It's like, how much is enough? You keep creating companies. And the companies that I created, it was never specifically emotionally connection to the company itself. It was always emotional connection to the value created. And so I began to realize, like, oh, okay, the common thread, because I had no, of course, at 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17, 19, and I could continue years old, you don't have any experience in the industry. You didn't go to school. You're still going to grade school. So it wasn't like I had this education, nor did I have these confines of, in this industry, we only do it this way. And in this industry, they're going to only pay you this much, right? Which provided me an immense amount of value. When I say that, what I mean is, if I found something, and of course, the most recent book is properly titled Friction Fuel. So if I'm drawn to understand friction, I'm naturally curious on how it could be better. And I understand, certainly now, everything is collaboration, right? We wouldn't be here on this call if a couple of people didn't collaborate a long, long time ago. And today you and I are collaborating with Zoom and these microphones and local internet carrier. So if that's true, what's the limiting factor in this vision? Well, when we're kids, what do we have an immense amount of? Imagination, which AKA could be vision. And you're not beholden to these confines of societal norms or labels or conventions that you can or cannot do something. So each and every time, every organization, and now I don't create organizations anymore. I create collaborations for entrepreneurs all over the world. It's the same exact thing as me understanding kid who can ride capability combined with person want to sell horse, place that sells horses, and somebody who wants to buy horses, right? When you combine all those together, you get a perceived increased amount of value. And I'm just converting that for a return to me, which was $10 or $20 to ride those horses through sale barns. It's the same exact thing. Take all the equipment that I have on a farm, the awareness that banks are buying out parcels to future develop brick and mortar locations in a city. There's ordinances of the town that if you own the dirt and it's inside the city limits, you must keep it maintained. I called it landscaping. It was bush hogging. There was a type of bush hog, a big clear cut rotary cutter is what the conventional term would be. But when I combined all those, I could drive. I had a trailer, I had a tractor, I needed fuel, and I needed my time, which at the time I had an abundance of. But the conversion on that was $50-$60 an hour. Like, that was better than riding those horses. So, and I had resources. All the students that I was in school with, many of them lived on farms. They knew how to drive tractors. They weren't wired up entrepreneurial, which I could leverage their resources and combine them with capabilities and the ability to understand that these places had to keep these lots bush hogged. And I called it a landscape company. It was one of the first organizations as well. It's the same thing.
So you said something there that I think is an incredible way to look at life, is that because you didn't have the conditioning, the past conditioning, you didn't have
Yes.
the constraints on your brain because you were a kid. It's like you hadn't grown up enough and gone through corporate America or corporate, culture to be
Yes.
conditioned into believing that you can't do it this way, can't do it that way. You just had this, you looked at it through childlike eyes, not childish
Yes.
eyes, but childlike. And
Exactly.
you
Yes.
could see the potential because you were free from those constraints of all of
Bingo.
the past conditioning. And there's been a continual thread that's been happening on all these podcasts, Chad, is that I've been noticing that it's this past conditioning that we've had in our lives. It's once you start recognizing it and breaking free from it, that's
Mhm.
when you start to really open up the aperture of who you are and why you're here.
I would 100% agree. And I would as well, I mentioned it just briefly in passing a couple moments ago. Everyone that I engage with, digging beneath the surface. And when I say everyone I engage with, it's entrepreneurs, high performing organizations. These guys won't and they expect they're going to do more tomorrow than they did yesterday. That's their wiring. When I track backwards, and even some corporate folks that I ask questions to as well, they tell you what they do today. They're missing what I now classify as a unique value contribution. The definition for that for me is it is the way that we were created. We we were designed uniquely to create value in the world. 8 to 10 years old, sometimes 11. I've had a couple between 11 and 12, but it's 8 to 11 years old. When you get close back to that and you combine it as well at that time, think about how big your imagination was. When you can get someone back to that place, embracing the way that they were designed to create value in this world, they tap into unlimited energy. I dare say, most recently and most publicized on the planet recently, until about a week and a half ago, is Trump. I travel a good bit. You do too. I don't jump 2 or 3 time zones in a day backwards and forwards in the same day. And I present to people and speak to people, but not 20 or 30,000 2 or 3 times a day. And then land back in Florida at 1 o'clock in the morning, get up and do it again tomorrow. That energy that you saw, you can't take enough peptides and eat enough good food and have enough doctors. And I'm pretty sure that guy doesn't exercise like we do. And you see the amount of energy that's coming from somewhere else. And we all have the capability to tap into that. Like I definitely am living that currently. When I mentioned I now create collaborations for my collab partners all across the world, I go home with more energy than I wake up with, and I wake up with a lot. It's because I understand how I was designed to create value in the world is to leverage the vision that I have with others on the planet that have capabilities, but they can't see the potential future. And they certainly can't see the potential future with consideration of collaborating with somebody else who's literally looking for them. So it gives me more energy than it takes. And I want that for other people.
Three things that pop into my head here. First one is unique ability, which is what we're talking about. I did a podcast with Julia Waller on this. We're fully steeped into that. Once you're in your unique ability, it feeds you more energy than what you're expending on it. And you're definitely in that groove. But you mentioned that between 8 and 11 is when that was when who you are and what you are here to uniquely contribute to the world. That's when it kind of
it shows
itself there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's curious because
it's the way in which you did your paper route. So I love, and obviously unique ability is a foundational requirement. All entrepreneurs, I would strongly suggest, go do it. The practical application of your unique ability is what I classify as your unique value contribution. So the individual pieces of you that Miss Julia is an absolute savant at seeing how they come together to create the words that describe your unique ability. When those come together and are applied, that's unique value contribution. It's the secret sauce of you, of how you execute what you can do. That's where you get the most amount of energy.
Right. And you saw it in 8 to 11.
Yes.
So for the listener there, just think back to when you were between 8 and 11 and go, what fed my energy? What was I excited about back then? And can I recapture that? And I'm finding that for myself now, because with the Viking Academy, and I've been sharing that with you, I'm getting more energy now doing this Viking Academy than I've ever had before. And I've always been this playful performer,
Yeah.
Reach out, have conversations. I get a dopamine hit every time I see connections. And that you've talked about that, seeing the way the connectivity of everything kind of comes together. And for me, it's that childlike awe and wonder, and wow, I'm curious. I want to go explore this. Like, what is out there? Like, what's going on here? Like, what is this world that we're in? Like, I'm so awestruck by it all. But it seems as though it's, again, buried with all these conditionings of where it was. Did you ever have those conditionings on you, or do you feel like you've been living your 8-year-old self your entire life?
And a muted, but yes. So the answer to your first question is absolutely. But until I became very intentional, look backwards, aware to see the pattern. So you mentioned it earlier. It's now giving you more energy, and you commented to the listeners to look backwards to that time period, 8 to 11 years old. What I would encourage you to do is look at the common thread, and if you would like a shortcut, it's the way that you do what you do, but you are guaranteed giving it away for free today. Like any invoice that your company is sending out, it says the conventional things that if I went down the road to a plumber, litigation attorney, or insurance, they're going to have the same type of invoice. So you're giving it away for free today. You could ask the top 5 folks that you are serving. They would be able to help you tell like why you buy what you buy from me. And that they were going to give you that secret sauce. And you can track that all the way back to around 8 to 10 years old. You might have applied it selling Girl Scout cookies. You may have done it because you were helping out at church. It was the way in which you were creating value. And it's shown up in everything you've done through all the different jobs that you've had. It's been this undercurrent and tone of value creation that you uniquely bring to whatever you do. Now, where we sit today in the current, do that little bit of work. The next stage is give it a name. Now it has an identity. Just like the first job that God gave Adam in the Bible. Name the animals, name the plants. So once you give it a name, you can't unsee that. And it will begin to cause what I classify as a trajectory pivot, because you're on this trajectory. We all are. Things that you're hearing today on the podcast, if you do this little bit of work, guarantee you it'll cause a trajectory pivot in your life. And one that, as we talked about already, gives you more energy than it takes. That's quite rewarding.
My brain's exploding right now with all sorts of thoughts and ideas. I'm trying to keep myself in alignment here, but so the unique value creation, and that's what your uniquely
contribution,
your unique value contribution. That's my contribution to the unfolding of the material, unfolding of
the whole
the universe. It's the whole thing.
It's the whole. That's where the energy comes from.
Right.
It truly is my contribution back to the reason I was sent here for this time period, to the whole. That's where the most natural energy comes from. Right? It's not because you're eating, working out. And I do all those things, cold plunging, sauna every day, peptides, vitamins, nutrients, supplements. This is way bigger than that.
This is like referring back to when people talk about being in the flow state. When they talk about being in a flow state and then it's flowing and it's easy, you're comfortable in your shoes. Like, it's one person I know, like, you're so incredibly comfortable in your shoes. You're so comfortable in your shoes. You're not worried about yourself. You're looking out at the world going, what does it need from me today?
And now I know how I can create that value. Any room, any place, and I have visions of this in the future of creating collaborations between states, right? Is it countries, states, you fill in the blank? The answer is yes, right? Ultimately, everyone in the room wants an outcome. And collectively, when you combine them together, you can help create that outcome. So really, I would argue that all of these connections already exist. I just have the ability to shine a light on them.
Right. So that you see the blueprint of the creator. You can see it there. We just haven't brought all the materials together and started building it and agreed that this is what we want to build together, and then bringing all those
Mhm.
collaborations together. The concept of collaboration that we're talking about here when it comes to business is taking two individuals that have a unique value contribution, another
Yes,
person with
sir.
a unique value contribution. You put the two together and you have this magic new thing that you've created.
Yes.
The concept of collaboration, and I've talked to many people about this, the entire planet is one big collaboration. The trees,
Everything, everywhere, every time, has been a collaboration.
yeah,
Right? So the only thing that's holding us back, vision. You mentioned childlike earlier. Get back to that.
yeah.
Because truly, whatever you can dream up sitting here, whatever you can dream up, there's someone sitting on a podcast or sitting on a Zoom session with the capability to help you create that. And they're literally at this moment, because there's 8 billion people on the planet, saying, man, if I could just find somebody who had an idea of how to use my skill set, and if they just get out of the way, I could just go create it for them. I wouldn't even charge them anything. I'd split the outcome with them. And when you talk for me, and I've studied so much on collaboration and now designed a lot with a lot of intellectual property around collaboration, the splitting of the outcome and a prereq, everyone engaged has to win, or it is not a collaboration. It's just not. So you have to come to it very authentically and with a focus on creating the value, new value out of you. Just be you. In the scenario that you talked about, two people who have found their unique value contribution, if they just be who they are, but you combine them, this is what happens. Something new that exists above them. That's magic. And we all have the capability. Just be you, but be open-minded. How can you combine you with something else and create something new?
But that's what the entire planet is doing on a daily
Mhm.
basis all the time. Like I say, the trees are sitting there collaborating with us. We are in a
Absolutely.
complete collaboration with trees. And someone was like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm breathing in oxygen, breathing out H2O. The
Yeah.
trees are breathing in H2O and breathing out oxygen,
Mhm.
like, or CO2, sorry, not H2O.
CO2. Let's go. It's close.
We're getting lost, but you know what I mean? You know,
I
there's
was
a collab.
drinking a little bit of water.
You were drinking.
Yeah.
I got thrown
Yeah.
off by you drinking some water. So there you go. But we're collaborating always on that basis. Like it's
Always.
everywhere. And
How
especially
intentional are we being about it?
how intentional. And so that's the thing is you are going, you see the unfolding of the collaboration everywhere,
Everywhere.
but you're seeing more importantly where it is potentially available that is not happening right now.
Between two existing people, places, and things. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So
collaboration is the unique value that is created by I call it the emergent, right? It's the unique emergent that happens when you combine two or more people, places, and things. And for anybody listening, look backwards. How do you get to where you are now? Only through collaboration.
So I want to take us down a little deeper down a rabbit hole here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I know you're a very spiritual man. You're very connected. You have a routine that I want to eventually talk about as well. And I want to understand a little bit more about how you approach your day. I want to do that a little bit later. But on this topic of the creator created the earth and creates everything.
Yes.
And all these collaborations are happening. But wasn't it, and I'm probably going to bastardize this. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but didn't Jesus say, ye are God's two sons of the Most High? Like basically saying that we are a piece of God and we are also creators. You're actually, when you're bringing together all these collaborations of people together, you are acting as the creator. You're an extension of the creator's creation by creating connections and with collaboration. So you're actually doing the work of the creator.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, yes, to what you just said. Absolutely. You will hear me say everything that you ever hear from me is coming through me. It's not coming from me. Not at all. This daily routine that you mentioned earlier, I just receive all the time, every day. I cannot wait to go to bed this evening because I know what's going to happen tomorrow morning, starting around 3:30 in the morning.
Tell the listeners about your routine.
Yeah, sure. So and I've classified it, right? So it's important for me to name with intentionality everything. So my my daily routine is literally called daily grace. So begin with gratitude, eyes closed. The second that you become conscious, it takes you about 6 months, at least in my personal experience, to get there. Especially when you grow up on a farm and when you become conscious, get your butt up. We have barbed wire fence to put up or a bush hog pasture, fill in the blank and anything. So that took a little bit to get out of that normal routine of feet hit the floor after eyes are open. But keep your eyes closed. This is what really works for me. And I began with gratitude because if we all have so much to be thankful for, right? Our perception of everything is created internally, not externally. Externally, it just is. We control how we perceive it. So starting out to condition yourself to look at the world a little bit differently. Thank you. First 2 words every day that you're given.
First thing I say in the morning when I wake up, I say thank you. I always say thank you. I woke up on the right side of the grass and I go, okay, now what do you want me to do today?
Yeah.
Guide my thinking, guide my thinking.
Yeah.
So I may do thy will. Yeah.
After that, I want to leverage theta, brainwave state, as long as I can. So I on YouTube, you can find these things for free. I suppose I pay for YouTube. It's the best $20 investment that I do. I have a curated amount, 432 megahertz is awesome, all the way up to 900 to 1100, which is different frequencies, but I would strongly suggest 430, anywhere around the 360 to 430. That's going to keep you in theta brainwaves, so you're slightly hypnotic. The door to your subconscious and your conscious is not completely, but it's pretty much wide open. And now you're in control to drop little seeds into your subconscious to empower you to make those show up and become reality. So I'm as well, when you're in that particular state, which we all are, right before you go to bed tonight, you're in that state. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, you're in that state. It's just the only difference in your routine and mine is I'm being very intentional about leveraging that state and mapping out the day in which I want. And I'm asking a couple questions starting actually the night before that I'd like to receive the answers for during that time. And that's typically going to take me from 3:30 to 5. And then at 5-ish, I go to the gym and I complete this little process that I have coined PSA. So we're all huge fans of Dan Sullivan. You mentioned strategic coach earlier. So DOS, dangers, opportunities, and strengths. I hand wrote in a journal for many years. And I continue to recognize a consistent pattern. I'm a big action guy. I like to understand things, and then what are we going to do about it? So over time, and just through awareness and observation, I would recognize the pattern in which I would write things. First, I like to start on a positive note. So potential, whether it be negative or positive for me, is a place in which I like to start from. And then after that, I challenged myself to write whatever I wrote. If it was a negative potential, I challenged myself to have to rewrite it where it would be a positive. And then the strength portion, I mentioned PSA, not public service announcement. It's actually potential, strengths. And the last one, of course, would be actions, if you're anywhere around close to me. So the strengths lead you to a place of collaboration. Do I possess the strength to make this potential become a reality today? If I do not, who do I know that does? And if I do not, that's what I'm looking for. So you can see the progression, potential, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. What's going to come to you, most likely what's going to come to you first is the negative. Now keep in mind that daily sequence. Thank you. Be quiet, meditate, leveraging theta brainwaves, and listen. Because if you're listening, you're going to hear.
And this is on
After
YouTube. Sorry, on YouTube, this is like a track, just an audio track that you just listen to.
Yeah, it's just
in the
frequencies.
background. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just theta. And you can see headset almost 24 hours a day. You wake up every morning and find it because I listen to books on the way to bed. So I find it in the morning, stick it back in, or I have another one beside the bed just in case. Stick it in, turn your phone sideways so the light doesn't blind you. Type in your code because you know the code backwards, likely have muscle memory on it. YouTube's in a specific place. Click, it knows what time of day it is. It's going to have your theta brainwaves at the top. Thank you for algorithms and AI. press the button, turn your phone upside down, and listen. Focus on your breathing, whatever your routine is to get to the place in which you are centered. Now, I mentioned the 2 questions that I write down before I go to bed the night before. A lot of times those answers show up. Then after that, just before or on my way to the gym, I'll focus on doing my PSA, potential strengths and actions. And after the awareness of, is this potential something that I have the strength to create the reality, or do I need someone in collaboration? What action am I going to take? It's a really simple routine. And then, of course, I do the normal couple hours at the gym, which includes 30 minutes of sauna. That's another time for meditation, steam, shower, cold shower, out the door. It's a great way to wake up 7 days a week.
So you're doing this 7 days a week.
Very consistent. Yeah, no matter where I'm on the planet. Now, the gym portion, I might have to run around a neighborhood in Manhattan or something like that. But yeah, I am out with my routine. The very first part, the things that let me get centered, there is no backsies and no pivoting on the daily gratitude. And the grace routine is what just really provides me tons of value. Daily grace, which I don't know if I told you what grace stands for. Gratitude, reflection, awareness, creation, engagement. So you're teeing yourself up to be present and aware, ask yourself big questions on potentials. Hopefully your thinking has gotten real big if you're listening to a podcast, that you force yourself to understand that collaboration is the only way. And then the engagement is what action you're going to take. Who are you going to engage with to create this reality? Rinse, repeat. You're ready to go.
And from there, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope the listeners got a pen and paper and they're writing that down. If not, listen to the podcast again. I find listening to podcasts multiple times is the only way that I get the true value out of them.
The more nuggets, they're deep.
The more nuggets you get out of it. And then you said, and what spurred us onto this conversation was you mentioning that everything that comes out of your mouth isn't from you. You are channeling it. It is coming through you.
Yeah, I'm just a conduit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to be present and aware to be that conduit.
And to be present and aware. And so this present awareness.
You mean daily grace? Is that what you mean? Or PSA?
Yeah, well, no, you're going through daily grace, and that cleans, shall we call it, clears a channel for you to connect with the higher power. So then you become the channel as you're through the day.
Yes.
You've done your work to clear the channel. And then throughout the day, you're saying you are now channeling the information that's coming from the creator through you.
Yes, sir. That's correct. I'm a conduit.
Yeah. That is almost analogous completely to the AA program, Alcoholics Anonymous. The whole purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm recovered alcoholic. So I practice the 12 steps, and the whole purpose of the 12 steps in AA is to clear a channel to a higher power so that you can do the will of the creator. And that's the whole premise of and then when you focus on that, God couldn't, would he, or sought is one of the lines that we have. Whatever your conception of God is, and that's the other thing that I really love about AA, they don't have a label, even though we talk about labels, it's whatever your conception is of a higher power. It can't, it will, and she can and will if you seek her or him or whatever you call it. But I'm seeing the similarity with what you have. You have your daily grace, which is your work to clear that channel and your thinking so that you can become that conduit throughout the day.
Yes.
Coupled with the physical, going to the gym and clearing your mind. So you're working on your mind, body, and spirit every day so that you can come to the world completely present and contribute your unique value contribution.
Yes. I have to do my part. My part is to help others see what exists. They just don't see it, and help them understand the immersion of combining their uniqueness with someone else's uniqueness, whether it be their organization, their passion, or their abilities. I'm a big VCR, a formula that was created by a good friend of ours, Dean Jackson. And he says V plus C times R. So your vision plus someone else's capabilities multiplied times someone else's reach equals success. And we have great conversations now, and he's definitely leaning this way, but vision is the catalyst. It's big V multiplied times C multiplied times R.
Because nothing starts without the idea, without the concept.
People say, oh, it's all about the execution. You know what everybody's executing on, right? Somebody else's vision. And there's multiple layers of vision. I'm not talking about ideas, right? So ideas, of course, are a fragment of vision. Someone who can see the potential paths, and then someone who can see those paths but knows the route, just like a Google Maps, right?
Right.
You can have an idea. That's great. But there's a lot more work to do. Can you see ways to create that idea? And now, do you know what's required to create that reality? This is true vision.
What I love about the way you're living your life, the way you're expressing yourself, is that you are encompassing the mind, the body, and the spirit all together, which is then combining you, which gave you that key to unlock the portal to your purpose in life. Like that's the Viking Academy ethos. It's like when you explore these three, and more importantly, what you're saying is it's the action you take on them. And
it's the action. Yes,
it's the action you take on it, because nothing happens until something moves. Like nothing happens until something moves, until action happens. But as you're doing that, you've found your purpose in life, and it's filled with purpose and passion. I see that with you every time we start talking about, your eyes light up and you're glowing and you're happy and you're present. And that's what I want for the Viking Academy members and all our listeners, to be able to go there. And I believe this, and to my core, that every single human being on the planet is here for a reason.
Yes.
Your work is to figure out what that is and to go do it. And once you start doing it, your life explodes. And like you said, this massive transformation, but the work that you're doing is on the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Yes. Yes, right? Absolutely. Yep. Trying to chisel to that place where I know how I was designed to contribute value creation in the world. You get all those in alignment, and it's a different energy that you receive, and you want more of it every day.
And you then become the passenger, so to speak, of this vessel known as, Chad, right?
That's right.
You're going along for the ride almost, even though you're taking action, but you're going along for the ride. And I think that's where that flow state comes into too, is that you're not, you're fully engaged, you're fully passionate, but you're not attached to anything.
That's correct. Yeah. There's a magnetization that happens, which is kind of that's another level of unique value contribution when you get in that particular zone, that I'm just continuing to ferret out, to put words to. I can see it and feel it, but enabling others to understand it. And I'll try to do just a little brief glimpse into it. When you begin to operate at that level, and one would say, you've heard this, when you begin to vibrate at this frequency with consistency, others that are also vibrating at frequency are absolutely attracted to you. Whenever you're introduced to them, you will feel it before you're even aware of it. Your body will feel it. It's super awesome. I think it happens on a cellular level, to be honest with you.
Well, I noticed that the first time you and I were in a workshop together. Like I saw you and we talked and we kind of looked at each other, and you said, "Hey, we should have a chat." Like I just instantly knew that we should have a chat and that we would have that. And that's that law of attraction, right? That law of attraction, which is the energy vibration, because we're all energy vibrating.
Every bit.
Right, every bit.
Every bit.
Here's a question for you. So in your morning grace, so in your daily grace, daily grace, you receive some of those answers to the questions you put in the night before. And so you're putting in the 2 questions and 2 questions the night before, and you receive some of those and in the morning during your daily grace. Then as you're going throughout the day, you're also, I'm assuming you're looking around and going, okay, where is the creator going to show me the other parts of the puzzle that I'm missing, or how do you operate throughout the day?
So I appreciate that. Under the concept of many things that I've shared here, collaboration is absolutely everything. What is the catalyst? Vision is the catalyst. This has been last week, and it hasn't hit the press, so to speak, yet. I shared it with some of my collab partners last week on the forum, but it's vision, catalyst, multiplier. And there's an underlying formula that I've received, I guess, I became extremely aware of. And that is everyone who's listened to this podcast and everyone who woke up this morning, there's one thing they're going to do all day long: collect. You're going to collect relationships, awarenesses, maybe learning or observing. You're going to collect. That you can't help but do that. That's just the way it is. If you can begin to shift your mindset into, great, this is something new. And this is, I'm giving you glimpses of the way my brain works. You asked the how.
Mhm.
So with the awareness that we all collect every day, today you got up and you had conversations, you took trips, you might have read something, you might have studied for a test, you collected. How can I, this is a constant program running internally of me, how can I take what I now know and combine it with what I knew? Inevitably, you will constantly create. You cannot help but collect. That's a default. You don't need to take any action or effort. That just happens because you're in motion and movement. So you're going to collect, I'm going to say it again: relationships, knowledge, awarenesses, or just simple observations. That happens. If you will train yourself to say, now that I've collected this, how can I combine it with something that I already knew, someone that I already knew, somewhere that I have already been? What will happen naturally is you will create. And all you're really doing is leveraging the art of collaboration, taking all the new inputs that you have and combining them. So I called it C3. You're going to collect. I encourage you to combine. The result will be creation. And it's just a very simple method I feel like anyone can do, because they can't help the first part. It happens. The intentionality is around the second, and the third is a result of. Rinse and repeat and see what happens.
So I'm trying to parse this out, the differentiation between seeking the will of the creator, say seeking the will of God and looking for that everywhere. You're actually, and sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but you correct me if I'm wrong. You're the act of you naturally collecting all of the manifestation that's out in front of you, and the conscious combining of that collection with your past experience and what you're bringing in today naturally creates new things. You're actually doing the work of the creator, as opposed to looking always for, oh, what does the creator want from me? You're like, it's right in front of you. You're doing it right now. Instead of looking for, shall we say, looking for God, you're doing the work of the creator.
How many times have you looked for something so hard? You're looking for this answer, you're seeking this answer, and then you find it. Where is it typically? Right about that close to your face. All I did was say, hey, I think I'm recognizing a pattern here. How can I empower somebody else with this awareness so that they can leapfrog this hours and hours of intentionality to try to pick up on little subtleties that are screaming at me? And it's, oh, I get it. We all collect every day. What we're missing is the opportunity to combine it with what we already know. Now, this does happen with some natural tendencies of humans. What I'm encouraging to do is tomorrow be a little bit more intentional about it. Watch what happens. You will create. Why? Because your experiences are yours. When you were created, uniquely designed, and sent here to create value in the world, all you're doing is connecting the dots. And the inevitability is you will create. And when you create, share. Remember the daily grace routine: gratitude, reflection, awareness, creation, and engagement. So whatever you create, share. Because then you're completing the cycle. What I share with you, as I have just done, you have collected today. Combine it with what you already know, who you know, or where you've been, and see what's created. And then after, share. That's it. Super simple.
I had an insight here to what you're doing, and I'm going to see if I can articulate it.
Sure.
You're bringing awareness to the innate ability for each one of us to create like the creator creates.
Yes, sir.
Like you see it clearly, like you said, when you can't, you're looking, you're trying to find it. I'm trying to find it. And it's like, it's stuck to your nose. It's right there. It's right in
You're
front of you.
looking for the answer. Yeah. And I
It's
don't mean
like,
your keys. I don't mean your keys,
yeah.
but I am being like, you're searching for something deep. And when you find it, you're like, damn it, it was right here.
Yeah, it was right there.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're showing us, what you're showing people, and what your unique value contribution,
Yes.
what your unique value contribution is, showing people that grace that's inside them. You already have, like we already have it. It's like
Absolutely.
you're moving the obstacles out of the way for people to see that they have the answers in front of them. They have so much of the answers in front of them, but the way that you are, the way we are being, instead of humans doing, we're human. The way you are being as a human is naturally doing this 3C formula, which is creation. And it's, you're being a creator. This is the extension of God that you are. You're being God and you don't even know it. And most of it we don't even know it, that we're doing it.
We have no idea.
No idea.
It comes so natural to us. We actually fight it, right? Societal norms, conventions, the conventions that we all operate inside of business, which is foundationally, it drives me crazy. We have so many more capabilities. Think tomorrow, 8.1 billion people woke up and they're trying to take what they collect in a day and combine it with what they already know, and then they're going to share it with you, and you're doing the same. Man, we're teleporting around the universe. I mean, there's cancer's been cured a long time ago, but we don't. Why? Because we think that we are this defined label of the letters after our name and the pedigree that we got from a college education. And it's like, no. That's not what makes you unique. It's the way in which you apply what you are uniquely designed to do. That's what makes you unique. And if you want to get really excited, combine it with somebody else's for the intent to create value in the world. It's quite exciting all the time.
The first time I started to understand what the unique ability is and unique ability teamwork, that's concepts that we learn in strategic coach. I started to get this excitement that was like, wait a second. I'm here for a purpose. And the thing that I love to do is the thing that I need to be doing, because that's what the entire collaboration needs. Now I need to go find these other collaborators that have those unique value contributions, take my unique value contribution, put the two together, and then it makes this amazing thing. But we're doing it all the time, but we're not doing it consciously. You mentioned something like being intentional and being very intentionally creating. And you mentioned something at the beginning of this thread of the daily grace, but you said naming it is so important. Can you expand on why naming it is so important? And you did tie it into one of the biblical stories in the beginning, but I want to kind of tie that one up into a bit of a bow too, because that one to me, it's like when I'm listening to you talk, sometimes I go, oh, and I get it. And then all of a sudden it's gone. I'm like, damn it. Like, when you almost have that connected, that dopamine hit that's like, it's gone, and it's gone. Like, so I was almost there with the naming convention. So I want to revisit that.
Okay. So the naming, the intentionality around naming is the process in which I created, but it's only based upon the awareness that I had. And you mentioned the biblical reference earlier. It's the first job that God gave Adam in the Bible. Name the animals and the plants. Did they exist before? Does nature exist, or is that a name that we gave it and defined what we think it is? And what about climate, right? So, and I reference a lot of time in the tool, and I do give this tool away for free to the entire world. It's on our SeedSpark.com website. It's Name the Baby. And it was from awareness at home. If we both had a baby and we didn't name it, whose would it be? They look alike when they're young. Like, we would never do that. Yours, if it had more hair, I would say it's yours, obviously. So anytime you bring that up in conversation, folks say, of course we named all of our children. Why would we not do that? It's like, yeah, but how much do you do that in your business? Because is it true the way in which you do, you're kind of emotional about, you put some intention around it. The way you deliver your product or service is the way you deliver your product or service. When you give it a name, you empower your team and also the clients that you serve to be an ambassador for you. If I showed up and said, hey, I performed this service and I didn't give you a name, but I said, it's going to do this for you. How many of those this are you going to remember? A couple of them, maybe.
Maybe.
So whenever you go to try to be an ambassador for me, because I did deliver all that and you were very excited, but I didn't give it a name, and you're going to give it to somebody else that's listening to this podcast, you're going to try to rattle off the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things that you remember. But if I don't give you an anchor to associate that with, I don't empower you to be an ambassador for me. So in your business, I believe naming, it's part of your intellectual property, right? But when you do it, here's the result that it provides and empowers others to be an ambassador for you, because you're associating it to the outcome or the experience that they're going to have. So this naming tool, and I tried to design it extremely simple. If you can put yourself into those shoes of those that you're serving, and of course, we'll use Mr. Dan's language, your hero target. And I would argue every business has 3 hero targets. So I love the language. It's absolutely perfect. Your team, those you serve, your clients, and your vendors and suppliers. Right? So if you can put yourself in their shoes, and you would ask yourself, when you deliver that product or service, if you were the recipient of it, how would you describe, what words would you describe to talk about the outcome? And simply listing those down on a whiteboard or a white sheet of paper, 1 line down the center, when you get 8, and best I can tell, 6 to 12 words, descriptive words around, again, how your hero target would describe the outcome. What did they feel, most importantly? Use those words, put those words down. And then you simply grade those words 1 to 5. On number 5, if I were that hero target and I heard that word around the product or service they had just received, I would lean in, because I want that outcome as well. So the 4s and 5s, you move on the right side of the whiteboard or the white piece of paper, and then you make like a butcher. You're going to trim a little bit of the letters here and trim a little letters there, and take 2 of those words, not sacrificing the meaning when you hear the 2 words. You can't take away too many of the letters. Smash them together. You will feel it when you have the right name. Then not only you're going to feel it, if you positioned yourself as those that you serve, and you took intention around the words that you wrote down, graded them based upon the emotion that they invoke, and now you've created a new word, I may strongly encourage you to go register that domain name, because it's probably .com available. And now you've separated yourself from the entire planet of being able to deliver that product or service that is very conventionally known in your industry, but now you call it something different, and you're the only one on the planet that can deliver it. And you've got intellectual property around it. So why would we not name those babies?
So this is, and that incredibly powerful when it comes to the business application of naming.
Yes.
On the other side, you named your daily routine, you named it Daily Grace, and you
Yes,
tied
sir.
it in with the biblical story. And that's in that, I want to kind of dive into that part, like the naming process and what your thoughts are and around business aside, naming something. And because you remember your daily grace, and it's a, like, I could
without a
see it
doubt.
already. Like every morning I do my daily grace, as opposed to I do my morning routine. Morning routine has I listen to,
You have
this is,
one.
what's
Everybody
your
has
routine?
one.
What's your daily, what's your spiritual practice?
Yeah.
What's your routine? What's your workout
Yeah.
schedule? Like there's no memorability to it, but your daily grace, like instantly I'm going, oh yeah, well, that's what Chad does. He does his daily grace. And I can remember it now. It's burned into my brain.
Yes, sir. Yes. Anchoring.
And so it's anchors into the brain.
For myself and for others. Yes.
And so what do you think? And this may be too much of a question to be asking, but I'm really interested in your thoughts, because I know you
Yes, sir.
think about it. why did God tell him to name the animals and the plants? There's a message in there. There's a meta understanding in this. Like the podcast I just did with Don Barden, he goes into the messaging of the biblical stories on what it actually, the extraction of the meaning. Jordan Peterson does an amazing job of that too. He's really doing some deep dives into that area.
Yes, he has.
Which is, why do you feel or think that naming something has so much power, and how
Because it touches the
benefits us?
emotional side of your brain, the limbic part of your brain. When I talked about naming in the business aspect,
Yeah.
it's around touching the emotions of a human. Why do humans move? Two reasons: fear, greed. I'm either going to lose something or I want something.
Yeah.
That takes forward action. So if you leverage that in the naming, it enables you to empower yourself with anchoring it inside, tying it to an emotion based upon some potential perceived outcome, and it improves the probability of you having consistency to execute. That is what it is for me. Now, of course, going down and associating a name for each one of the letters with a lot of intentionality, and in sequencing that's very specific. The names are, and the sequence of the names are very specific to create the outcome. To me, it's all math, and it helps me with the anchoring is the name, the intentionality around the actual words that are used that also touch the limbic part of the brain, but are in sequence to create this overall outcome, which greatly increases the value for the time invested.
That's going to take me a bit to digest. You went into the mathematics, the spiritual, the mathematical, the emotional. Again, this is why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, because I could, like, the thinking that you have and how it comes together. And another thing for the listener here, it's not just hearing it once and having it done. The more you listen to something over and over again, you learn more, you create it together. And if we think about the 3C formula that Chad just shared with us, because you are collecting the new information every time you read or listen to the same thing that you've listened before, you're collecting it, but you're combining it with your past experience and your understanding. So you're creating something new. So that's why when you read some books, like, I'll read it and go, when did they put that in there?
Like influence.
It's
Yeah.
like,
You're familiar with it, yes?
no, what was that again?
Oh, Influence by Robert Cialdini. I think it was in 1984.
Yeah, yes.
I do consistently read it. And every time I do, I'm collecting.
Yeah.
I'm intentional around combining, and I create something new every time.
And every time you read it, you're like, when did they put that in there?
That's right. Yeah.
And
how did I not see that correlation? Yeah.
And so there's this correlation as well. And I have a thought as well, is that as you're reading a book, so you read it the first time, the second time you read it, you're actually a different person when you read it the second time.
Absolutely.
Because you are, and the reason why you're seeing different things is because you are a different person. You're seeing different things. You're actually, that's where you collect different things from it. So
yes, sir.
Constantly changing, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. That is inevitable. You are constantly changing. The intentionality of how you collect and combine dictates what you create. We all have the same capabilities.
And we're actually doing it all the time, but you're saying put intentionality behind it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And when you put intentionality behind it, I think coupled with the daily grace, which is clearing the channel to the universe, you're clearing the channel to the universe saying, I want to talk to you. I want to connect with you. I want to connect with my theta waves, your brain and spiritual, and then go work out at the gym afterwards. And then throughout the day, you're now a channel. And realizing and seeing it and being more intentional, you naturally are fitting into the whole picture of the universe and doing it with grace and ease. And that's why every time I see you, you seem so calm, relaxed, joyful, and generous with everything that you do. Like you're so generous, and the amount of value you create in the world is, I see it so crystal clear. It's so crystal clear to me. It's like who you are is yelling so loud I can't hear a word you're saying.
Yeah.
Either that or I can't understand the words you're saying, because really you say some stuff sometimes that I have to sit there and go, whoa, like I gotta,
yeah.
But I'm getting it now more. I'm understanding it more. I'm going to listen to this podcast multiple times. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, the ability to now giving you the C3, the 3C formula, C3 formula, sorry.
Yeah.
If you tie it to, okay, now that I've created something, who can it help? Give it away. Give it all away. Watch what happens.
Give it all away.
Yes.
And there goes, that ties back into the St. Francis of Assisi's prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's in there. It's by loving that you're loved. It's by being cared that you get cared for. It's by dying that one wakens to eternal life. And again, I'm not quoting it quite correctly, but it's the gist of that. It's when you give, you receive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're collecting. Yeah. They're going to give you some type of feedback, insight. It's just more resources to then combine that eventually and result in creation. And it's this endless cycle. What if, again, I asked the question earlier, what if the whole planet operated that particular way? Where would we be?
And that's what I'm hoping the Viking Academy will be part of that awakening. That is another ethos. The underlying ethos here for me is to become more of like a new earth school. So awakening to our past conditioning so we can see who we've always been. Now we can be intentional about it. And you've just put that, you've really framed it and made me understand it even more, that we are all creators, all creating all the time. It's just, are you being intentional with it? Because when you are intentional with it, then amazing things happen.
Absolutely. Big time. I'm excited for everyone who's listening.
So am I. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, dude. This is fantastic.
Always remember, it's a two-way street. So thank you as well.
This was a fantastic collaboration. Thanks for listening to the Viking Academy podcast. Make sure to leave us your honest feedback by leaving a review on Apple or Spotify, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.